Hello, hello, hello. Hello, how's everybody doing? This is G. Daffy just left the room, so you're stuck. You're stuck with me and the video for the Saturn retrograde. I think you can see my chart. This is a real, I like this chart because of the simplicity. Just, yeah, not an unbelievable amount of glyphs and minimal lines. And the lines that this chart shows, it gives you the trines and the squares, right? It gives you all the aspects to Saturn, because this is a Saturn retrograde video for Saturn retrograde in Pisces. Yeah, you see it? Pisces energy, 12 degrees and 41 minutes. Yeah. To 19 degrees and 25 minutes. Because the planet goes backwards, that's what a retrograde is. We know that that means that, let me change this real quick. This is the connection. That's the connection you're looking at. It's when Saturn gets to 1925 of Pisces. Just so you know, we're already there. Maybe not 25 right now. If I were to pull up, I'm recording this in the beginning of June, and we've been at 19 for a nice amount of time already. But the planet does slow down. It's at 1902. So Saturn's not an especially fast mover, but it's not a Pluto. It doesn't drag its feet, right? So it's already at 19, and here we are looking at the chart for when it gets to 1925, because at 1925, it begins its retrograde. It begins going backwards, and that is right there, June 29th. Bam. There it is. So it goes back to 1241. You follow? So let me do that in red. Do that arrow in red. It goes backwards to 1241. And then it starts to go direct again, because that's how this works. I think if I angle the camera or whatever, the thingamajigger, it will stop doing that crazy thing with the lighting. I'm not really sure. Yeah, I haven't figured all that out yet. I mean, it's only been, 5 years? How long has this channel been up and running? In your chart, you got to look between these degrees of 1241 of Pisces and 1925 in Pisces. That's what you're looking for in your chart. And when you find that spot between these two, when you find that spot, you can figure out what house number it's sitting in. And then from there, you can see what area of your life where you're feeling the Saturn retrograde. Now, can you feel something and not know what it is that's causing that feeling? Absolutely, right? Here's the thing about Pisces energy. It's really sensitive. Very sensitive. Some would say overly sensitive. I mean, it is overly sensitive. It's hypersensitive. It's the sponge of the zodiac. It just soaks up everything that's around it and the energy and the people. And it just, super sensitive sign. So knowing what Saturn means will then help us to understand, what is Pisces feeling? What is it sensing? Okay. If you know anything about Saturn, you know it represents restrictions and rules. Normally it's associated with government and boss energy, and like, I'm the boss of you and these are the rules. And I always refer to Simon Says when I talk about Saturn, or I haven't in a while, but I used to always, because it's the one who sets the rules, right? And along with setting the rules, Saturn can also be wonderful in that it helps us to think ahead long term, to think about what our goals are. Like, what are we trying to achieve? What are we building for anyway, right? Because it's a very material, tangible sign. So it's about, what are you building, right? And the steps that you got to take to reach that goal of that thing that you're working towards. And normally with Saturn energy, we associate it with material and tangible financial security. Like, got to get me a house, got to get me a nice piece of land and a house and some property, right? My place, right? My property, my rules. But of course, everybody still has rules even within that, there's rules because, well, that's part of the deal when you want to live within a society. We agree upon a certain set of rules that we all are supposed to follow. And that's how we try to function in a harmonious way. The timeline, here's your next important date to pay attention to. That timeline right there, June 29th to November 15th of 2024. Gosh, for us in the States, like, this is huge because we have an election like on November 5th. So we're looking at this like, okay, how is this going to have what sort of an effect on the elections and the politicians? Pisces energy, right? Pisces, people who are the performers, the talkers, the people who influence. But ultimately, they're supposed to be there to represent us, not rule over us. So something there about that Pisces energy and people getting carried away with the cameras and the spotlight and wanting to be on film and wanting to be the entertainer and the performer. And it's like, if you want to be in a circus, yeah, go get in the circus. That's not a place for someone who's supposed to represent the people. There's a big difference. And I only use circus because of the word, I think, entertainment and under the spotlight. You know, you're in the big tent, you got the big spotlight on you and the music's going and whatever. So June 29th to November 15th. Now, these degrees, some would say that the degrees themselves are of importance. 19 degrees and 12 degrees. Those are both important because that's the location where the planet Saturn will have to stand still at those degrees. That's where it literally stops before it switches the direction. So it's going forward, forward, forward in June, and it gets to June 29th, and it's standing still, not moving at all. It's at 1925, and then it starts to go backwards. It moves backwards, and it's moving, going, and it gets eventually to 1241, and it stands still at 1241. And every time a planet stops its movement, every time it stands still, we feel it stronger. What do we feel? We feel Saturn stronger. So we're thinking more about the long term. We're thinking more about our material, tangible, long-term goals. We might be thinking about corporations and government and business and how, unfortunately, they go hand in hand, right? You wash mine, I'll wash yours, and we're in business together type of thing. And so Neptune and Jupiter ruling Pisces energy, and some of that behind closed doors, you know, those private meetings and those backroom deals, that kind of stuff. It's like, okay, so what's really happening? What's really going on? We're never going to know. So there's no point in speculating and going there. But Saturn being in Pisces can lend to some restrictions and to some rules and to some sobering effect on the conspiracy theories about what goes on behind closed doors, about the blurry vision, even about the I don't know, or I'm confused and I just don't get it, or whatever, right? It's like the smoke screen clears, like the clouds go away, or even the curtain is opened, because Saturn is someone in charge, someone who is serious, someone who is all about holding. It's supposed to be about ethics. Ethics, not so much where good guy, bad guy, but ethics like, these are the rules. This is what we established as the structure and the order, and these are the rules. And this is how this is supposed to work. And we agreed upon this a long time ago, right? So as I'm reading and thinking and going through this for the States, and I'm looking at this timeline, and it's just like, okay, so we have a system. We have a system, and we have a set of rules within a system, and we're like, okay, we're supposed to follow these rules. But along the way, a lot of the Pisces energy, people who've learned to talk and to use words to manipulate and to persuade others, there's a lot of that where we're like, oh my gosh, we might have to make some, if it's not changes, we might need to add some things to the rules that already exist so that we can add clarity, because we're living during times where it's as though the forefathers of the country just couldn't possibly have foreseen some of the insanity that we're living through, right? And so whatever that definition of insanity is for you in your life, however you see that, because yours may be quite different from mine. And I'm going to be honest with you. So far on this channel, there are very few people when they're commenting to me, and maybe I shouldn't share this, but I'm going to go ahead because like this is who I am and I just got to keep it real. There are many people on the channel when they're commenting, wow, they're taking a lot of the things that I say. And I know it's the Gemini stuff, right? I get it. It's expanding our minds. It's giving us the flip side of what the definition of something is. And it says, you know what? It could mean this. And guess what? It can mean this. And it's teaching us about semantics. Holy shit. So I've learned, well, I haven't really learned. I'm trying to learn how to speak more clearly in a way where I guess what I am saying cannot be twisted or manipulated so much, where it's like, no, but this is what I'm saying. Because I can say something and people are like, oh, I totally understand. And then they'll give me like their sentence or their explanation of what I'm saying. And it just be like, that's not at all what I said or what I meant to say. That wasn't what I was trying to say. Right. So I have to pay more attention to that. So I'm going to work on that. With that said, sobering energy, because Pisces is the wine. Pisces is the substance. It definitely is illusions and delusions. It's clouds and confusion. It is supposed to be fuzzy. It's supposed to blur the lines of reality. That's what Pisces' job is. And we have had Neptune in Pisces. So Pisces has just been super strong on all of us, especially for those in the States. Pisces in their third house of the mind, the way we think, what we see and communicate about, and yes. So it's been working double overtime. And once we get through this, we will be wiser and we will have a greater level of understanding. And that's what Pisces wants us to do. It wants us to see through the bullshit and to get to the greater level of understanding. That's what it wants for us to do. So in the meantime, this retrograde and this chart, let's back it up so you can look at something different for a change. Here's Saturn over here in Pisces. It's a little pixelated, but they're showing you right there. They're showing us what I just said. It gets to 19 and that retrogrades back to 14. Because Pisces in this chart begins here at 0 and ends there, which is like 30 degrees, because there's 30 degrees in every sign. Okay? So now with that, and that Saturn, it shows us what will be squared and what will be trine and what will be sextiled. So we'll go do the one that people usually are interested in first, which I think is the trines. Well, it's water energy. So Pisces trines Scorpio and Cancer. So there's Scorpio. It's going to be a trine between the 12 and 19 degrees of Scorpio. It's going to be a trine in the sign of Cancer between 12 and 19 degrees of Cancer. Trine energy means something easily happens. So you look for those locations on your birth chart to see what house, what house number is your Pisces, what house number is your Scorpio, what house number is your Cancer. And then you get a better understanding how you've got trine action happening. Okay? Blue. Okay? Blue. Those are the trines. Now, the squares are the angles that are in red. So you see those in red? It's mutable signs because Pisces is mutable. So it's the mutable energy. When I match the energy, it's a square, 90 degrees away. So that's Sagittarius between 12 and 19 degrees. That's a square, stress and tension. And the other square goes to Gemini between 12 and 19 degrees. Saturn will create stress and tension to Gemini energy and Sagittarius between 12 and 19 degrees because that's where the retrograde is. Okay. Now there's an opposition. The opposition will be to Virgo. Virgo's at the opposite end of Pisces energy, and the opposition is between 12 and 19 degrees of Virgo. You get it? Yeah. And then there's the quincunx energy to Libra over here between 12 and 19. That's a quincunx. So it's an irritation to Virgo energy. I'm sorry, irritation to Libra energy. Just draw that real quick in black there. And then the other quincunx is to Leo energy. Okay. Quincunx to Leo energy. And then there's a sextile on here. And we can go light purple for the sextile. The light purple, the sextile energy is going to mean something like it can bring some ease. And that's the Capricorn energy. It brings some ease from the Saturn, which is interesting because Saturn rules Capricorn, right? Yeah. So there's a boost to all things Capricorn, which is long-term goals and ambition and structure and order, duty and responsibility. Very, very serious energy is Saturn. Very, very serious energy is Capricorn. It's like the adult in the room. It's Capricorn. We think of dad energy when we think of Capricorn, the person in charge, the boss, the CEO. Very serious energy, all about the business. Very professional energy. When you see the color black, you walk into a place, people are dressed in black. It's very serious energy. Okay. So the Earth, right? Sextile to Taurus. See that? Sextile to Taurus, because it's 60 degrees away. Sextile to Capricorn, 60 degrees away. Okay. All right, so here it is. Here's the Saturn retrograde on the 29th. And there it is, conjunct Nessus. Ooh, can be difficult, right? Because Nessus joins it. Remember, restrictions. Saturn is about rules, structure, order, and restrictions. So think of it like when you're at your job and you get a new boss. And you had known your old boss for 15, 20 years. You'd been there for a while. So even though that was your boss, you were comfortable with each other. And even if you weren't like friends, at least you knew them to a degree where you understood what was important to them. You understood there were certain things that you might be able to, get away with, or, like they would give you a little wiggle room and certain things where they did not play, where they were just dead serious. A Saturn retrograde is maybe you feel like you got a new boss, like a substitute or something that steps in, and they play by the rule book. They walk in and they got the book in their hand, and they are checking shit off right on down the line, like rule number 1, rule number 2. Like they go by the rules because you're feeling Saturn more strongly. Now, that 19 degree, think partnerships, think business partnerships, think professional partnerships. You can also think about like lawyer energy. You can also think about, I don't normally say this, but I'm going to, open enemies. I'm saying that because it's conjunct Nessus, and Nessus is kind of considered an enemy of Hercules, and it's conjunct Saturn. It's also retrograding, you see? So the degree of Saturn, that's like this partnership thing. It can be marriages. It can be business partnerships. It can be like diplomacy and professional partnerships. We think of lawyers, right? We think of whoever it is that's important in your life that you have to compromise for. And so that Libran energy is typically like where we have to meet in the middle, right? We each got to meet somewhere in the middle to figure a way how to move forward. So this energy and it being in Pisces, we can think of institutional energy. So yes, it can be institutional. We think of government agencies. We think of hospitals. We think of like the post office, but this is also like the stage and screen and theater, right? And music. We think of doctors. We think of medicine because it's substances. And Pisces, those public figures. One of the things I want to stress, though, is because Jupiter is a co-ruler of Pisces, one of the ancient rulers, we think of, we think of prison, of course, because it's Pisces, and, being isolated, Pisces, water, and confusion. But we also think of like across the ocean, what's going on over there, foreigners, right? We think of foreigners and immigration, and we think of foreign leaders, people whose faces that we know, that we hear about in the news, those public figures. Yeah. So there's a little bit of more detail on that. So the retrograde in this chart, just to give us a little context, 19 degrees, and I got Zoe like yelling at me at the back door through the door. Goes to 12 degrees here, even though this says 13 right here, but then this is 5 up here. See how that's confusing because there's so much here. We're just going to, for the sake, put that there. So 12, between 12 and 19 is the shadow zone, November 15th. So that is some food for thought for you to think about, and to think about how those rules and those restrictions, for some folks, this may be a blessing because the Pisces energy can be confusing. And so this can be sobering. It can be all of a sudden it's not as confusing as it was. And that can be a relief in many ways. It can be a big relief. Something I will touch on real quick here is the South Node. Now remember, this is just on the day of. The South Node is at 11 degrees. It's at 11 degrees. This can be all about science. South Node's not quick. So it's been at this 11 degrees. This isn't like some, all of a sudden, oh my God, on this day thing. But it's just kind of interesting to think about. It's group energy. It's group and it's science. And we think of like unions. We think of people power. We think of organizing, putting ourselves into groups. At this time, we've got Venus and Mercury and the Sun all in Cancer energy. You see? So again, this is the end of June. This is the end of June. And there is a focus on Cancer energy, emotions, women energy, homes, feeling. The past is a thing when you've got Cancer season. There's a lot highlighted here about issues and things of the past. Women, the war on women. Here is the Virgo energy. We saw the opposition. Black Moon Lilith will be there. You see that? And Juno is there. Juno is part of this at 17. Tight opposition. Juno will be opposing Saturn because Saturn's going backwards. Juno's sitting there at 17. All right. So Saturn usually can bring some restrictions and some order, duty, and responsibilities. So wherever the Pisces energy is, as an example in this chart, it's in the 10th house. So if this was your chart and Saturn's doing a retrograde, well, Saturn may bring more responsibilities, more duty. You feel that energy stronger. You become more focused and driven, possibly even on what it is you're building for your future, because those are all keywords of the 10th house. If this was your chart, this could be beneficial because Saturn is at home in the 10th house. Remember, this is a chart of the moment, though, okay? So you're really looking for which house number is the Saturn retrograde going to happen in your chart. Once you find that out, comment to me down below. I can give you some keywords, some things maybe that you didn't think of to help you figure this out, okay? So the Saturn retrograde again, June 29th, 2024. We're feeling the effects all the way until November of 2024. Saturn sobers up. It can bring restrictions, and it may bring wanted work and duty and responsibility. And for some of us, if we're working our job, is there a possibility you're getting a different job, right? Or a different, different boss at the job? When it comes to this, because it's a retrograde, there's definitely something that's felt stronger. So maybe it's an additional boss. Maybe that's some additional rules that are being changed. Or maybe, like I said before, it's rules that were there before that people weren't really necessarily enforcing, but are now deciding to, hey, we're checking these off one by one. That's a possibility. All right. So you got any questions, you comment below, and we'll go from there. I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.